Have you ever wondered how a country like the United States, initially hesitant to join World War I, mobilized itself to become a decisive force? What would it take to build an army, transform an economy, and rally an entire nation? In this video, we're going to break it all down. You'll learn how the U.S. rapidly prepared for war, the sacrifices Americans made at home, and the challenges that came with balancing patriotism and civil liberties. Let's dive into the remarkable story of America entering World War I. In 1917, life in the U.S. was transformed almost overnight. Colorful propaganda posters filled every corner, urging men to enlist and families to conserve food. Factories shifted from consumer goods to wartime production. Families observed meatless Mondays and wheatless Wednesdays, so food could be sent to Europe. Why did this happen? The U.S. had entered World War I after years of trying to stay neutral. Mobilization required the entire country to contribute, whether it was enlisting, working in factories, or buying war bonds. But these efforts came with a cost. Civil liberties were restricted and dissent was punished. This transformation set the stage for America's role on the global stage. At the start of 1917, the U.S. military was alarmingly small, with only 379,000 troops. Meanwhile, the Allies were desperate. Europe had been ravaged by battles like Verdun, where 300,000 men were lost in a single year. The U.S. needed to act fast. The Selective Service Act of 1917 was the answer. It required all men aged 21 to 30 to register for the draft. By the war's end, 3.7 million Americans had joined the armed forces. These troops, known as the American Expeditionary Forces, AEF, were led by General John J. Pershing, who brought experience from conflicts in Cuba and Mexico. This rapid military expansion was a turning point, signaling America's readiness to join the global fight. Mobilizing for war wasn't just about soldiers, it required a complete economic overhaul. Factories that once made cars and stoves were retooled to produce airplanes, weapons, and ammunition. The government created the War Industries Board, WIB, to oversee this transformation, ensuring efficiency and coordination. Labor unions played a key role. The American Federation of Labor pledged not to strike during the war in exchange for influence on policy decisions. This partnership kept production running smoothly, allowing the U.S. to quickly meet the demands of the battlefield. This economic mobilization demonstrated the country's industrial might and set a precedent for government intervention in the economy. How do you fund a war that costs over $35 billion? For the U.S., the answer was Liberty bonds. These bonds allowed citizens to loan money to the government, earning 3.5% interest. Buying bonds wasn't just a financial act, it became a patriotic duty. Those who refused were often labeled as un-American or even sympathetic to the enemy. Meanwhile, the U.S. also loaned $11.2 billion to the Allies, most of which was never repaid. The Liberty Bond campaign showcased how ordinary Americans could contribute to a massive national effort. With millions of men off to war, women stepped into roles they'd never held before. Factories producing munitions and supplies relied heavily on female workers. Women's efforts didn't go unnoticed. French Field Marshal Joseph Joffre famously remarked, "If the women in the factories stopped work for 20 minutes, the Allies would lose the war." These contributions were instrumental in advancing the women's suffrage movement. By proving their capabilities in traditionally male roles, women laid the groundwork for the 19th Amendment, granting them the right to vote. The Allies didn't just need soldiers, they needed food. Herbert Hoover, head of the Food Administration, urged Americans to conserve. Programs like Meatless Mondays and Wheatless Wednesdays became household routines. Families were also encouraged to grow victory gardens, producing fruits and vegetables at home. These efforts paid off. Wheat production rose from 637 million bushels in 1917 to 921 million in 1918. Hoover summed it up best: "Wheatless days in America make sleepless nights in Germany." The government's Committee on Public Information, CPI, launched a massive propaganda campaign. Posters, films, and public speakers spread messages of patriotism and unity. However, this wave of enthusiasm also fueled anti-German sentiment. Foods like sauerkraut became Liberty cabbage, and German Americans faced harassment and violence. Worse, the Espionage Act, 1917, and Sedition Act, 1918, criminalized dissent. Criticizing the war or government could lead to imprisonment. While these laws aimed to protect national security, they severely restricted civil liberties. Not everyone supported the war effort. Men who avoided the draft, known as slackers, were publicly shamed. The Justice Department raided public places like ballparks to arrest those who couldn't show draft cards. These actions revealed the intense pressure to conform during wartime, raising questions about personal freedoms versus national loyalty. The United States' entry into World War I was a transformative moment. It reshaped the military, economy, and society, but it also highlighted the tension between national security and civil liberties. Here's a question to consider. How did America's mobilization for war reshape American society and politics in the post-war period? If you got a lot of value out of this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and the bell so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.